Hi, friends. Welcome back to the podcast, Hormone Health for Real Life. Today, I'm going to talk to you about hidden stressors that are keeping us as women stuck in survival mode. This is Jen here with you today, and this is a little bit of a continuation on last week's podcast about what high cortisol actually looks like in women. When our cortisol is high, it keeps us stuck in survival mode. For years, if somebody had said to me, "Are you stressed? Are you feeling stress? Is life stressful?" I would have said something like, "No, not really. Life is busy. I have things to do. I've got responsibilities, but it's not really stressful." And I would say that because I wasn't experiencing what I thought was consequences of stress. I wasn't having panic attacks. I wasn't completely and totally falling apart emotionally. I wasn't just sitting around all day feeling stressed. What I've learned is that even though I wasn't feeling stressed constantly, my body was still feeling that stress. And it was showing up in symptoms like being exhausted all the time and not being able to sleep great. Hormones were all over the map. My inflammation was really high. My cravings were out of control. And my body just felt like it had to work harder to do basic things than it ever had to before. So I had to learn that stress isn't just something that we feel. It is something that our body experiences, whether we know that it's happening or not. A lot of the biggest stressors our bodies are feeling today aren't really obvious ones. They're kind of hidden and things that might not be so obvious. They're the things quietly telling our nervous system that danger is there, even when our life seems relatively normal. Let's dive in and let's talk about some of these stressors and what we can do about them so that we can calm down our cortisol and get our nervous system back on track and get our body out of survival mode so that we can heal. Why does this even matter? This matters because a lot of the symptoms that we as modern women are feeling today all come back to nervous system dysregulation. The weight gain, the fatigue, the poor sleep, the brain fog, the anxiety, PMS, cravings, inflammation. The list could go on. But if you're feeling any of those things, stay tuned and let's dive in and get to the bottom of this. Because those aren't separate issues. They really are just symptoms of the same nervous system dysregulation. Hidden stressor number one, we talked about in the last cortisol podcast, and it is blood sugar roller coasters. For me, this was something that wasn't obvious. I knew I needed to keep my blood sugar stable because I had heard that at some point growing up, but I didn't do a very good job of it. I have a sweet tooth and I like to eat what I like to eat. I didn't really pay attention to what my blood sugar was doing. Once I finally realized this was an issue, I started wearing a continuous glucose monitor, and it was so eye-opening. Things that I had no idea that were affecting my blood sugar were affecting it. And just wearing that continuous glucose monitor for about a month gave me the insight that I needed to really shift some things in my diet. When we get a blood sugar spike, it really is that. It is a spike. Our blood sugar shoots up in a very quick pace, but as high as it goes, it's going to then drop that low very quickly on the opposite side of it. So it's ups and downs and ups and downs and ups and downs. When we're doing that to our body constantly, the cortisol is having to kick in to bring their blood sugar back down to a normal level, and cortisol is in our system all the time. So we want to control our blood sugar and keep it steady without having to rely on the adrenaline and the cortisol to kick in and help us out. This is what was happening for me. I would get up in the morning already tired. So before I would even have breakfast, I would have a swig or two of a caffeine drink just to get me going. And then I would grab a muffin mid-morning because I was finally hungry. And then I would work right through lunch and skip that meal. So then by the middle of the afternoon, I was hungry again. So I would grab a handful of crackers as I was walking through the kitchen and then have dinner, but then be craving sugar shortly after dinner and having a huge big dessert right before bed. Even just saying that out loud, I know how not healthy that is. But when we get caught up in living our lives, sometimes that's what our day looks like. And when that sometimes turns into every day, that's when we start to have a problem. That type of a day was giving my body a biochemical roller coaster. Every single crash required cortisol to step in and rescue me. Many women, like me, spend years trying to fix all of those symptoms separately, the anxiety, the cravings, the fatigue, not even realizing that blood sugar is really the root problem, and that once we can stabilize that blood sugar, so many of those symptoms start falling off the map. Now, I do like my sweets. I have a very big sweet tooth. So if you're like me and you're saying, "I still want my sweets," where in this program is a place for me to eat my sweets, let me tell you, you can still have your sweets. You just have to eat them at the right time. Don't ever just eat sugar. And by sugar, I don't just mean candy and candy bars. I'm talking about anything that's going to metabolize as sugar. So white bread and white flour, those things that are straight carbs and will metabolize into sugar, don't eat them by themselves. Always pair them with protein and fat. And what about the brownies and the candy and the cookies? I mean, I'll be honest, I should quit eating candy. That's probably not going to happen. And I really do love a good brownie sundae. But instead of waiting until right before bed and eating a huge big brownie, have dessert right after dinner when you still have protein in your system and your body is still working on digesting the protein. Because putting sugar in after the protein won't spike your blood sugar nearly as fast. So sweets in moderation, and when you have them, pair them with protein. And that honestly is hidden stressor number 2, which is not eating enough protein. As women, we like to try to eat healthy, but sometimes that looks like salad, smoothies, toast, fruit, maybe yogurt, and oatmeal. If that's all we're eating, we are seriously deficient in protein. There's nothing wrong with any of those lighter meals. They just need to be paired with protein. Put chicken on your salad. Put hemp hearts and some yogurt in your smoothie. Pair some eggs with your toasted fruit for breakfast. Protein provides the amino acids that we need to build neurotransmitters, support our hormone production, stabilize our blood sugar, maintain muscle mass, and support our recovery. When protein intake stays really low, our body often compensates with more cravings, energy crashes, increased hunger, and a greater stress hormone output. So we really need that protein. And paired with the carbs, it helps our body digest them slower, helping us not have the blood sugar highs and sugar crashes. Sometimes we think we're doing our bodies a favor by eating those really light meals, those salads and smoothies. But really, we're just creating another stressor for our nervous system to deal with, and we're not doing ourselves any favors. What if you don't like eggs? What if you don't eat meat? There are also plenty of plant-based proteins that you can pair with your carbs and get into every meal and snack that will help keep your blood sugar stable. Hidden stressor number 3 are seed oils. If you've been around holistic solutions very long, you have heard Jenna and I talk about seed oils. What a lot of people in the world today don't understand is how bad they are for our bodies. When I say seed oils, I'm talking about refined oils like soybean oil, corn oil, canola oil, cottonseed oil, sunflower oil, safflower oil. They're oils that have been extracted and bleached and had things added to them. And then they now show up in almost everything we buy at the store. We don't want to have a lot of fear around this topic. The concern isn't really the actual oils themselves. It's just how they're processed. And then we're consuming them in almost everything. When we buy food at the store that's in a box or a package, it's likely full of some of these oils. Our crackers, cereals, even things I didn't expect, like oat milk, was full of canola oil. This is a place where we need to start reading our labels. Those oils create a huge oxidative stress on our body, which then leads to inflammation. So much inflammation could be curbed by cutting these oils out as much as we possibly can. So what do we use instead? There are healthy oils out there. Oils like coconut oil and avocado oil and olive oil all have a place in a healthy diet. They're not overprocessed and they're not heated and refined like the others. Making that simple switch can go a long way for your family's health. And then read the labels on the food you're buying from the store and try to avoid them as much as you possibly can. We're not going to ever be perfect, and don't cause yourself more stress over this. Make some simple switches and do the very best that you can. You can do that by just eating more whole, minimally processed foods. And that leads into hidden stressor number 4, which is chronic inflammation. If you're experiencing things like joint pain and migraines and digestive issues and skin problems and your body just aching, it's likely inflammation coming from somewhere. Our immune system is constantly communicating with our nervous system. And when inflammation stays high in our body receives a continuous message that something is wrong, which then starts this cycle. Cortisol rises, our recovery slows down, our energy drops. We get stuck in this inflammation and stress cycle that's never ending. Where does all of this inflammation come from? It comes, some of it, from the environment that we live in. We do live in a toxic world. We often can't really do anything about that. So let's talk about the places it comes from that we can do something about. Sugar. Sugar is highly inflammatory. Eating too much white and processed sugar, eating too much fast food, and that is because of the sugars and because of the seed oils. Another thing that can cause inflammation is lack of movement, which I know sounds contradictory. If we're hurting, we don't want to move, but if we don't move, we hurt worse. Some gentle movement makes all the difference when it comes to inflammation. It helps that inflammation flush through our system, and it keeps our joints and our muscles healthy and strong and lubricated. So don't forget to get some movement. A couple of other things that could be causing inflammation are poor gut health. All of the toxins and the yucky foods and things in our world today have created a hostile environment for our gut microbiome to flourish in a healthy way. But we can remedy that by eating more fiber and getting probiotics in things like sauerkraut and yogurt and kefir, and getting bone broth. Bone broth is kind of like the soil that then the probiotics can thrive in. While they're both good, bone broth paired with probiotics are a winning team. We can also be nutrient deficient. If we are lacking in things like magnesium, vitamin D, zinc, or omega-3 fatty acids, that can cause our body to be inflamed. So check and see if you're getting enough of those important vitamins and minerals. Hidden stressor number 5 is living in constant stimulation. I think this is one that does not get talked about often enough. Our brains were not designed to process information all day long, but that's exactly what we're asking them to do. Our phone is beeping constantly. We have news alerts, social media alerts, emails, text messages, television, podcasts, noise, content, more information, more opinions, and it's being thrown at us from every direction all the time. One of the funniest and most annoying things that I have found recently is that even the gas pump talks to me and shows me commercials and news stories while I'm filling up my gas. It's just kind of nuts. It's coming at us from everywhere. And then on top of that, we have decision fatigue. What should I make for dinner? Did I respond to that email? What appointments do I need to schedule? And what day will that work? And what does everybody around me need from me today? I get to the end of the day quite a bit and cannot make any more decisions. My husband will say, "Where do you want to go out to eat tonight?" And I'll say, "I don't know. Just make the decision for me because my brain can literally not make any more decisions today." You probably have felt like that sometimes. The more decisions we can make ahead of time keep our brains from going into decision fatigue. So that's just a little trick. Plan some things out in advance and write things down on your calendar, and then you don't have to remember so many things. One of the most overlooked forms of stress today is simply the absence of stillness. Think for a second about when was the last time you sat in silence for any amount of time. Do you like having the radio or the TV going in the background when you're at home or when you're driving in the car? I tend to be overstimulated, so I do like silence. I've made a point over the years of turning things off, but it was a very conscious effort. Find some times throughout your day where you can sit for even a few minutes in some stillness, in some quiet. Close your eyes, take some deep breaths, and let your nervous system relax a little bit. Here's a big one. Hidden stressor number 6 is our negative internal dialogue. This is something that we have taught about repeatedly because it matters so much. And I'll be honest, I really struggle with this. I know I would never speak to any of my friends like I speak to myself in my head. I'm constantly telling myself things like, "I failed at that again. I'm broken, nothing works. I'm just too old. My body can't heal. I've tried everything." That list could just keep going on and on and on. Have you even noticed your thoughts? We go into this on our podcast about recharging with the basics, about how important our thoughts are. A lot of time we might not even recognize the thoughts that are playing on repeat in our subconscious mind as we go throughout our day. Once I finally tuned in and started listening, I was appalled at what I was telling myself. And I've had to remedy that very simply by just having a mantra that when I catch myself repeating these negative thoughts, I repeat my mantra to myself several times until I've retrained those negative thoughts to go away. Our nervous system is always listening. They absolutely influence our physiology. How many of you have walked around the corner in your house and someone jumped out and scared you? How long did it take to calm your heart rate, calm your breathing, and slow back down again? For me, it takes probably 15 or 20 minutes. Like my kids know, don't scare mom. It doesn't end well for them because it's so hard for me to calm back down. When our brain repeatedly receives messages of danger, hopelessness, failure, and fear, our body responds accordingly, and we do get a stress response. Our healing truly does require more than just changing things physically. It does require us changing our thoughts as well. It requires changing the story that we've been telling ourselves and rewriting that story and reprogramming our brain towards the positive. Hidden stressor number 7 is possibly that we never let ourselves recover. This is a big one. We're really good as women about just pushing through. I know I'm tired, but dinner has to be made. I know I need a rest, but Joey needs to be picked up at soccer. We're just going to push through. We take care of everyone else. We show up, we work hard, and we just keep going because we don't feel like we have any other options. But we do have other options, and we have to allow ourselves to use those options. There's even a title for that in the world today, and it's called Rushing Women's Syndrome, where we run around until our body finally says, I can't do this anymore, and then we crash. Our nervous system isn't designed for endless output. Every period of stress requires recovery. It requires restoration, and every season of pouring out requires a season of filling back up. I think we've all heard that we can't pour from an empty pitcher. As mothers and as women, we have to take the time to fill up our pitcher so we can then give more to others. Without recovery, survival mode becomes a permanent state. It requires moments of stillness. It requires time when we're not producing, when we're not solving problems, when we're not consuming information, and we're not caring for everyone else. We can either take those little pockets of time as we can throughout our days, or we end up crashing and burning really hard and having to take a lot more time, which we also don't have time for. So find the little pockets of time. There's a book that I really love, and it's called The Power of Full Engagement by Laura and Schwartz. They share a powerful insight that they discovered when they were working with elite athletes. The highest performing athletes weren't the ones who pushed through nonstop. They were the ones who alternated between periods of intense effort and intentional recovery. They found that the body is designed to work in rhythms of stress and renewal, and that growth, resilience, and peak performance happen during both phases. They noticed this when they were observing tennis players. In between matches, even though they were playing matches back to back, there were some athletes who would step aside, close their eyes, take some deep breaths, calm their mind, calm their body before going into the next match, where others would stay in that heightened sense of urgency. And the ones who stayed in that heightened sense burned out quicker. The highest performing athletes were the ones who took that time to renew and recover and were very intentional about taking those opportunities. And the same thing applies to us in every aspect of our life. Stress isn't the problem. The stress without the time to recover is the problem. I want to leave you with some action steps that you can start with today. The first step that you can take is to identify these hidden stressors. Ask yourself, what stressors am I overlooking? Is it blood sugar, seed oils, inflammation, decision fatigue, constant stimulation, negative thinking, undereating? What is it in my day-to-day life that is causing my body to not feel safe? Awareness really is the first step in the healing process. Start becoming curious. Don't become judgmental. Don't get down on yourself. Just get curious and start asking those questions that will lead you to answers, which then leads to step 2, which is add in more safety signals into your life. Our body heals when it feels safe. Make sure you're getting protein in your meals. Get out in the morning sunlight. Do some deep breathing. Take time to rest. Stay well hydrated. Plenty of water. And don't forget your electrolytes and your minerals, because high cortisol actually burns those minerals even faster than they normally would. Get in some gentle movement. Make some meaningful connections with your family and your friends. Laugh a little bit. Give some hugs. Hold hands with your husband. Spend some time in nature. It's very grounding and very relaxing and signals to our body that we're safe. Try turning off your notifications on your phone for part of the day and just see how you feel. Do you need to know every time Facebook or an email come through? Probably not. Maybe a text, maybe a phone call. But for me on my phone, I have all of my other notifications silenced because I don't like the constant dinging. I can get to Facebook when I get to Facebook, and I can get to emails when I get to emails. I don't need to worry about them the rest of the time. Try that if you find yourself over notified. Create some moments of quiet and stillness in your day, even just a few minutes at a time. Go outside in the sun, close your eyes, take some deep breaths. Don't underestimate how powerful these simple habits can be. And then step number 3 is just keep doing those 2 other things. Focus on these foundations. Keep being curious. Keep asking yourself these questions. Keep diving in and trying to find the root of the feelings of unsafety in your life. And then do the things that will help your body feel safe. We don't need a complicated plan. We just need to use these foundations. Ask yourself, am I eating enough protein? Is my blood sugar stable? Have I created space for recovery today? And how much time have I sat in stillness? These basic foundations do truly create our biggest transformations. If you have been listening to this episode and you recognize some of these hidden stressors in your life, I have a great free resource for you. It's called 8 Ways to Downshift Your Cortisol Right Now. It's a short list of things that you can do right in the moment when you're feeling like you're stressed and you're feeling that cortisol rise and you just need to dial it back a little bit. Find the link to that in the show notes. And just to recap, today we talked about a powerful truth. Our body doesn't just respond to emotional stress. It responds to all stresses. We talked about blood sugar roller coasters and not eating enough protein. We talked about seed oils and constant inflammation. We talked about living in constant stimulation, our negative internal dialogue, and then never letting ourselves recover. Going forward, identify those hidden stressors, add more safety signals to your life, and helping your body feel safe, because our body will start to heal when it feels safe. Thanks for being here with me today, and we'll see you next week.